I'm doing good, one day at a time. Experiencing God's grace, experiencing God's love, and just, seeing what the Lord's doing in the midst of everything that we've been encountering. I mean, He's still Lord either way it goes. Doesn't change Him.
Hi, everybody. This is Emiliana Martin with Revivalist Conversations. We'll be joined by my friend Dwayne Eison. He is an amazing man of God, in addition to being a probation officer. He's also a mentor to young Black men. Tell me a little bit about your background. I know that you are a probation officer, and I also know that you mentor young Black men.
Currently, I am a probation officer, which will classify me as a law enforcement officer. I obviously work with people who are given another opportunity to redeem themselves, in life. I wouldn't call it like a babysitter, but I like to look at it as a counselor or a mentor to try to keep people, on a safe passage, try to get them to see life in a different way. It's like riding a bike with training wheels so that, once I feel comfortable with them being able to ride that bike, and making the necessary turns. I mean, you still get the assistance, but you could take the training wheels off, kind of give them a lot more freedom to try to find themselves and, find a purpose here on this earth. Before that, I was working and coaching football. So I was working with a lot of at-risk kids. Well, actually, before that, I was working in a juvenile hall detention center. And before that, I was working at an at-risk school in education. So I had a firsthand, to work with kids who had like serious behavioral problems. And because of the behavioral problems, it kind of impacted their schoolwork. So, we tried to come up with a plan to just kind of guide them and mentor them, give them another way of seeing life other than what they used to. And I was very fortunate to do that. And then, get the opportunity to work in the detention center, then coach football, and to where I'm at right now, being a probation officer. I like to look at it just as a mentor, as a counselor, because that's, in essence, that's what you're doing. You're mentoring and you're counseling people in life. It's not just so much as, well, you can't do this, don't do this. I learned in working in education, doing tutoring kids, you can't just tell them that 2 + 2 is 4. You got to show them why 2 + 2 is 4. Because you show them that, then they'll understand that 4 subtract 2 is 2. They have to have a meaning and an understanding. And in our field, we like to call a revelation. They get that, then they can do it on their own. Then it opens up a whole nother world. Mm-hmm. But if I just say, do this and do that, you don't put no reasoning behind it, then, and most times they're not going to comprehend that. It's not going to, like, they'll hear it, but you're not going to be able to allow it won't take root, because they have to see that there's a reason and a benefit for while you're trying to get them to do something that they either feel like they can't do or they don't want to do.
So in other words, you pastor young men.
Yeah, that's how I look at it.
I agree. Tell me about how you have been experiencing these last 2 weeks. How has it impacted you?
Well, obviously, any life for me, regardless of race, I have an appreciation for. So any life that's taken, especially in the manner that it was taken, it's always disheartening and frightening. It's a sad thing to see. Now, here's a dynamic for me. Me being a man of God, my responsibility is to love. So it's to forgive. So Amen. Obviously, that's the first approach. That's been rooted in me enough that I can see something like that take place, and then as a Black man, still forgive and still not hold a resentment, as well as being a law enforcement officer, realizing that not all police officers are bad. Not all law enforcement officers are handle the situation the way the officer handled the young Black man.
Yeah.
So for me, there was a balance, because I'm in 3 different categories. even though I work in law enforcement, still they're not all responding and conducting themselves in that type of manner. So I was never conflicted. I just was like, okay, Lord, where's this gonna go? Now, obviously, I didn't like it because I'm like, this is ridiculous. This has to stop. This is becoming a major problem. Every time I walk out that door, I'm asking God's grace, because while I may be a man of God, that's not how they look at me out there. When I say they, people, not everybody knows that I'm a man of God, but when they first see me, they see me a black man, they see a big black man. So the reaction wise, I mean, I get it all the time. Either people across the street, or people won't say nothing. They'll keep their heads down, or they'll suspiciously walk. They'll see me. The neighborhood that I live in is a very nice neighborhood. It's pretty diverse. Not a lot of African-American people here, but other races. So when I first moved over here, certain areas that I would walk, because we have a big park around the corner, police would be there. I mean, I know they were doing their rounds, but like, I kind of know how law enforcement works. I know when you go in certain neighborhoods and you see the police just roll up out of nowhere, yeah, someone's called the police.
Wow.
They put I don't want to say a word out there. I won't say they put a word out there, but a call has most likely went into, and they could be overdoing it. Hey, there's a suspicious person in my neighborhood. That's someone who, I mean, especially if they're not used to me being in that neighborhood, I can kind of understand that. But if I'm not doing nothing, I'm just going for a walk. I'm not going like an inopportune time, meaning like that. I'm not late at night, which would be nothing wrong, but I'm not like peeking in nobody's yard or nothing. I'm just going for a walk. I'm not going in someone's driveway or nothing like that. So it's been a balance, because I don't want us to forget the main thing in all this, and that's God's love. As much as God loves George Floyd, he does love the police officer,
Right.
Who committed the senseless death, to Floyd.
I want to ask you about that, because I worked in a mental health facility where I was trained in de-escalation tactics, but also on how to isolate somebody, either by yourself physically, or one-on-one, or usually it was with two people, where you could restrain someone without putting your knee on their neck. How come those tactics aren't being exercised in police departments?
What that officer did is not something we're taught. Now, you're just, if I want to use the word, secure the defendant. That meaning like you just want to make sure that he's in a position where he cannot get up and run or cause any problems. In his case, he wasn't restraining. That's why I didn't understand why the officer, and I know some people made an argument that, well, what was he doing beforehand? I don't care what he was doing 10, 15 minutes beforehand. Right there at that moment, if he's not resisting and he's just laying there and he's telling you can't breathe, I can't breathe, you have to give him assistance. And that's how we're trained. That's why I said I don't blame that on the training. I blame that. That's
on the officer.
Now, if he was resisting and the officer was doing that and the guy was saying, I can't breathe, then what you do is, as long as the guy on the ground is restrained, as long as he's restrained, like he's not a threat, then there's no need to put your knee on his neck. I know sometimes you'll see officers, to gain balance, they may put the knee on the shoulder blade close to the back, but try to limit that if you can. And if you do, we're taught how to do that. Now, that's how my department is. I'm going to assume that their department doesn't teach them that. Now, the whole neck thing, I've never been trained to do that, ever. I personally think that was more of his thing, of him doing his own thing. And like I said, if someone's pleading that I can't breathe, you don't ignore that. That's not something, again, if he was resisting and fighting, then I would totally understand. But from what I saw through the video, he wasn't doing that. I mean, he was just laying down saying, yo, I can't breathe. I can't breathe. So that to me is not a lack of training. That's someone that's not implementing the training that's been given to them.
How do you feel about the other officers that were there? I understand that they were being trained. And even though I think one of them was like, shouldn't we get up? He said, no. I mean, if you're a trainee, what do you say to your trainer? I mean, how do you get around that?
That's kind of hard. Well, let me rephrase that. I mean, you have the officer who's the trainer, and he's got all these years of experience. And like I said, you're there to learn. You would have to ask questions. That's something you have to make a decision on. Like, and sometimes you may have to make it right then and there. And I've been in that situation.
Even if it costs you your job, even if this officer, even though he's wrong, it could cost him his job.
Well, the trainee, it shouldn't cost him his job if he's just asking a question. Now, it depends because I couldn't see if they could all see the guy. I'm pretty sure they all could hear him, but they can all know that his knee was on his neck. Because if you're taught to, okay, you cover this, there's a crowd, you stay over here, you stay over here. If a guy is saying, look, I can't breathe, he could say something. I mean, you always have the free will to open your mouth and say something. As a trainee, you just now start, you just coming on board. Do you want to make it seem like you're not in support of your training officer? I mean, I'm not saying giving like a justification or excuse, because
if you were in that situation and you were the trainee, how would you handle it?
Well, I'm different. When I say I'm different, I'm a little bit more secure in myself, in my opinion, where I'm going to question. I'm just going to say, hey, he said he can't breathe. Is everything okay? Is everything okay? But if he was told to stay post wherever he was at, and he leaves that to go check, I mean, that may be a potential problem. And then you have to understand, like,
and what would you do?
Me personally, what I would do is I would voice, hey, Sarge, if I was in charge, is everything okay over there? He's saying he can't breathe. And then they said, 8-9 minutes went by. At that point, I mean, you gotta keep saying something. But at the same time, if he was on a post, like, you're supposed to be watching the crowd, whatever, you can still voice it. I mean, you can still say something. You just have to be prepared to give an explanation, because a report is going to be taken from everybody, and they're going to ask everybody, hey, did you hear his pleas and his cries? Well, yeah, I heard, but I didn't know that his knee was on his neck, but you did hear, though. Yes. Well, why didn't you leave your post to go and investigate? So for me, yes, I would do that, but that's me. I can confidently say, because of the way I am, that I would say something. Now, would I go and physically remove him off his neck? I mean, that's not the question you're asking, but it's just one of those things. Seems like it's so easy,
but it's not.
But it's not. That's what I'm saying. Yeah. So in his shoes, that's why I can confidently say, for me, and I don't want to say that and let me rephrase that, because I don't want to say the officer was not confident in himself. A lot of things is going on in his head. Should I say something? Should I not say something? I mean, we're all constantly aware of things that's going on. And he chose, I'm pretty sure he didn't expect the dude to die. But it's like, once he dies, like, oh, shoot, like, this dude is dead now. Okay, now you got to give an explanation. Now, like I say, most officers that I've been involved with, trust me, they want to say something, and in some cases, they disagree what's being taken place. But it's just one of those things where, do I say something or do I not say something? You got to say something. You got to be able to respond. But, because I don't want to put him down. But in that situation, it sounds like it's the easy thing to say and do. But since you're asking me, I can honestly say that, yeah, I would say something. Now, will he listen? Well, I did my part. So once a report is written and if investigation is started, well, I did my part. And I said my part.
Here's what I would have done, and I'm no cop, but I play one on TV. But for me, I'm like you. I'm mouthy, and I would have said, "This ain't right." Yeah. This, and at some point, me personally, I would have pushed him off. I'm like, you can't do this.
Yeah.
I mean, and assuming they have their body cameras on, it would be what I just did and said would be justified in a court of law. I'm like, you're going to kill this man. I can't be a part of that. Would that have been appropriate?
Depends on who you're talking to in terms of being appropriate.
That's completely subjective.
Yeah, because the reality of it is, some people will look at it as, yeah, you did the right thing, but other people would be like, nah, man, you shouldn't have did that. You don't do stuff like that. But that's where it comes in. This is where these are decisions that have to be made. And
Aren't there some ethics? If it were me, aren't there department policies that would shield me from a negative report in my personnel file?
Yeah, there are policies, but your actions will be considered as well too. It doesn't mean that you will be in the wrong or nothing like that. It just means, your actions will be considered. Again, if you were told to stand on a post and watch here to make sure the crowd, no one comes out the crowd, and you leave that post to go, I'm not saying it would be held against you. No, I'm not saying that, but your actions will be considered as well. But in terms of department policies that would protect, yeah, I don't think you'll get a negative report. Because I can easily say that the negative won't come from, your report. It may come from your peers.
You're between a rock and a hard place.
It puts you in a very difficult situation.
A conundrum.
Yeah. The right thing to do obviously would be to push him off. And if you have that opportunity, go forth and do it. And I'm not saying you leaving your post means that you're going to get in trouble. No, that's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying that everything is going to be reviewed and you should be okay. Now, among your peers, that might be a different thing. And I say might.
You're juvenile probation or adult probation?
Adult.
How are the men of color taking this right now? Do they know about it? And what have they said?
I mean, the few that I've talked to about it, they don't like it. They don't like it. I think there's a combination of frustration because this has been going on for years, but then also a justification for some people who refuse to change their ways because it fuels into what they believe that the police is out to get us. The police is out to kill us. I wouldn't say the police in itself is out to get anybody, but I will say that there are some people who feel a certain way towards Black men. So some of my defendants, that I work with, I've shared with them, and they've encountered some really good officers, whether they were Black, white, or Asian. So for some, it feels that this is what they've always felt like, that the police has something against Black men. And then the others are a little bit understanding that all officers are not bad, which they're not,
right.
And all officers are not doing what, some of these officers are putting themselves in position. Well, just speaking on how they feel. And it's not like a half and half. I just got a few who feel like, yo, man, this is crazy. They out here killing us. Where the rest, right, they're a little bit more understanding. They get it that like, yo, man, this is not, he doesn't reflect everybody.
Right. Do you have children?
No.
What do you say to a mom of a Black man? Obviously my son, 6'4.5". He's just a couple of inches under George Floyd. His hair is not the best. He admits to me it's a rebellion thing. I'm like, okay, fine. But out in the real world, that could be intimidating. We have these talks periodically, and this weekend it was, what do you do if you're pulled over by a cop? Well, I reach over and get my wallet out and da-da-da. I said, here's what you do. Because he was kind of like, I said, you grab your wallet, you put it on the dashboard. And when he gets there, your hands are on the steering wheel like this. Okay? Don't look him in the eye and do exactly as he says. And if he asks you to reach for your wallet, which is right in front of you, great. But if your wallet is in your pocket, put your arms out like this and tell him to get it.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, I never thought I'd ever have to have that conversation with my son, but there it is. What do you think of mom?
I would say that if his wallet's in his pocket, he gets pulled over. I wouldn't pull it out just yet. Mm-hmm. What I would say is he should keep his hands just on the steering wheel where they can see. If the officer asks, say, hey, the wallet is down here in my left hand pocket. Is it okay if I reach down here and get it? As long as he makes that clear, then that's fine. I would say don't just go reaching down there, but let the officer know, because you have to understand the officer's position. He doesn't know what he's reaching for. He has no idea where his wallet is at, so he don't know. And there have been countless stories, and I've seen them in training where people say, okay, I'm gonna reach for something, then they pull out a gun. I mean, I've seen women have guns in like between their legs and their just between their leg and their skirt, and they're like, well, can I reach for it? And the officer, I mean, not expecting her to reach for anything else, she reached down and pulls out a 22 or something like that. So I would just say, I mean,
that actually is a really good. Interesting you point that out, because Philando Castile, he said point blank, I'm a licensed carrier of a gun and I have it with me. Even if you make that admission and you try to be peaceful about it, it cost him his life anyway.
Yeah, from that, I couldn't recall if the officer said he was reaching for his ID or if he was reaching for the gun. Now, when he told him that he was a licensed carrier, you don't have to reach for it. Just say, look, I can show you my ID and I do have a gun on me. Now, I've been pulled over by police before. They've ran my license plate and they knew I was an officer, but they still put me over and they say, and I have my hands up on the steering wheel.
Isn't a courtesy for you to just be left alone?
It is, but I mean, if they have a probable cause to pull me over, they can.
A probable cause meaning, oh, you're a black man, let me pull you over.
Well, not all cases. Not all cases is like that. So what I do is, this is before I got into law enforcement, I calmly, and this happened when I was in college, and my mom was living in Morgan Hill at the time. And Morgan Hill was a really nice area. And it was a nice area where she lived at. When he pulled me over, what happened was he ran my license plate, and he knew that my license plate wasn't for that area. So he's like, what you doing in Morgan Hill? And I said, well, can you tell me why you pulled me over? And he got upset with me. He's like, I didn't ask you that. I said, okay, I'll tell you why I'm here once you tell me why you pulled me over. Now, I wasn't rude. I wasn't disrespectful, but I showed him that I knew my rights. And because I knew my rights, he had to tell me why he pulled me over. Now, he claimed I had my tail light.
Yeah, I was just going to say, is it a tail light problem?
And so I'll be honest with you. I ended up, getting it fixed. I personally think that it was because of that gave him the reason to stop me, because he just couldn't stop me for no reason.
Right.
I didn't give him lip. I didn't give him attitude, because I'm not going to do that. Most officers, even though there's a high expectation, they're human beings too. So they have lives too. And the things that they have to deal with on a daily basis. And you think dealing with human beings is one thing, with dealing with people, lip and attitude, but dealing with people who hate you, want to kill you, don't want to have nothing to do with just bleeping your name off for no reason. I mean, it does take a toll. Now, obviously, when you sign up for this, those are the things that you have to deal with, And so I would say to a mom, that's okay to tell your son, hey, look, this is how you go about it, because that's the approach you want to take. You never know when you encounter, like the officer, when he pulls someone over, he doesn't know who or what he's about to encounter. Because then the officer had, and I'll be real honest with this, so some of us are thinking, some black men, not all, yo, man, I don't know if I'm about to live. Some officers feel the same thing. I don't know if I'm about to live. They trying to go home to their family too. Going back to Castle, I would say that that situation, either from what I gathered, the officer panicked and fear overcame him. I don't know if what's his name reached for his gun, because even though he may be licensed, don't reach for your gun. You don't want to do that, because we're trained that if you reach for a gun, that comes up, there's all bets are off. There is no more conversation. There's no more talking, because there's really nothing to talk about. So I would say,
in the trunk in a locked case.
For who?
If I'm driving down the street and I have a gun, isn't my gun supposed to be in the trunk in a locked case?
Officer or the concealed carrier?
Me. So I'm not an officer. I'm a concealed. I'm not concealed. I'm driving down the street. I get pulled over because, busted tail light. But my gun is in the trunk, apart from the bullets, and they're both locked up. Should I even mention I have a gun?
You can. I mean, you could tell them like right then and there and say, hey, officer, this.
Shouldn't the gun also, as a matter of course, shouldn't the gun be in the trunk, out of reach?
That's a good question. For concealed carriers, I'm not 100% sure. I don't have an answer for that. But I'll look into that because
Okay.
I know as for us, we carry ours with us. Now, as
On
long as
your
I'm
person?
going, yeah. Now that's when I'm going to and from work. As long as I'm coming straight home, we have certain policies that we have to adhere to. Now, someone who's just a concealed carrier, that's a good question, and that's something I'll look into. But most concealed carriers, they carry their gun on them. I don't know a lot of the people who take their gun off and put them in the trunk, and they may very well, but it'll be definitely something that I would look into.
Okay. Not that I'm going to be doing that, but I have actually thought about it, but no, no.
I mean,
Uh,
it's optional. I mean, if the officer is asking to look into your trunk, you could tell them. I would tell them then,
oh yeah.
but you don't have to volunteer that information unless you really want to, because again, he's not pulling you over for the gun. The gun is on your person, yeah. Because like I said, when they've pulled me over, they've asked me straight up, "Hey man, do you got a gun?" And I tell them either I have it on or it's in my trunk. I'll tell them straight up, and I'll be upfront with them because it's good for them to know that they never know what situation they're walking into. That's why I said that's a dynamic that I'm very thankful for being in law enforcement because I get to see another side of it. And because of that, with family and friends, they'll ask me, do you think that was justified? You never want to say a killing is justified, but there are certain things that people can't do. And sometimes people are aware of that and sometimes they're not. I think sometimes people watch the movies too much and they think that what they see people doing, you can't do that stuff. And as a black man, yeah, those things shouldn't be happening to me. And I'm not saying it's about George Floyd, but I also got to make sure I don't put myself in a certain situation. Again, I got no business reach for anything. Again, the officer doesn't know that. And if you reach now, I may not be quick to pull the trigger, or the next man may not. It just depends on the officer right then and right there. Does he feel like his life is threatened? If he does, more likely he's pulling that trigger. Every situation warranted is different. In the matter of George Floyd, there was nothing in there that he could justify. I have no idea how they're going to argue that, but they will. Now, if he was able to articulate that, look, man, my life was in the guy was on, it's kind of like the Oscar Grant.
Total control.
Yeah, it's like the Oscar Grant situation. He said he thought he took his taser out, but then I was still saying, but Oscar Grant wasn't moving. Like he wasn't trying to get up and take off. He was mouthing, but you can't tase nobody or shoot somebody because they're mouthing. If you don't want to hear somebody's mouth, don't become an officer. It's just plain and simple. And it works vice versa. If you don't want to get in trouble with law enforcement, this is not really directed at people who are getting abused just because of the color of their skin. I'm talking about people who are doing stuff.
In general.
Yeah, in general. Yeah, you're just doing stuff and if you are speeding, you're going to get pulled over. Oh, I mean, you pulling me over if I'm black. Yo, man, you're going 65 and 35 miles per hour speed zone. I got to find out, make sure that you are okay, because if not, you become a threat. So if I let you go and you crash or run someone over, that falls on me. That's on my conscience.
Right.
And police will say, hey, didn't you stop that person? Yes. Why'd you let him go? Oh, well, man, I didn't want him to think because he was black. What the heck? Nah, it ain't about that, So it's a balance, because what has been happening to black men and what still happens, that's real. Man, that's legitimate. I mean, even before I got in law enforcement, I encountered that ever since I was in my teenage years. And my mom, and I always feel like the wisdom of God was like, you know what, man, I ain't gonna get into it. They got guns drawn, so what I'm gonna fight them for? And I remember my brother, he got into it with the police. It was like 8 officers, and I had just got home from work that were surrounding him. Yeah. Oh, they had surrounded my brother, but they were trying to calm him down.
Oh,
and
okay.
Thankfully, by the grace of God, they sent me over there. And I mean, I walked over there. It was like I heard the Spirit of the Lord say, go check that out. And it was my little brother, and yelling and screaming. And this, I wasn't working in law enforcement then, but I had at that point knew and understand, okay, man, one, I have to be careful, when I go out. Oh, that's not right. You shouldn't have to be careful. That's just the reality that we live in. You know what I'm saying? I have to protect myself. So I ain't going to give you no incentive for you to do anything to me. And I'll tell another story. In college, a good friend of mine, we call him Tiger because he looks just like Tiger Woods, and he's African-American and Asian. and he
Oh,
lives
you don't want to hear my Tiger Woods impersonation. It's really bad, but it's really good. But anyway, go ahead.
How does it's bad, but it's good? So bad that it's good. I got you.
Right.
He, he has a lighter complexion. We were all dark skinned. We was just left from football practice. It was 4 of us. He got into it with one of my other friends, and they started fighting. And the area they live in is Palo Alto. Now, the area that they live in, no, they live in Palo Alto. Oh yeah, so they live in Palo Alto. Someone saw this, called the police. I kid you not, the police was there in 3 to 5 minutes, because from the time they was you just heard all these sirens, and I'm like, first I'm thinking like, okay, an ambulance, and there are more sirens. I was like, yo man, I'm up. I was like, I think I hear the police. So we started walking. They had their little fight. We broke them up. We settled it. Someone told the police, because they told us that we were jumping a white kid. And we wasn't jumping him.
I mean, of course, because it's always about some white kid.
Exactly. And because my good friend he's a lighter complexion, it looked like it was 3 against 1. But no, it wasn't. Once they started going, first we was like, man, we just gonna let y'all have at it. But then it was like, yo, dude, now let's break this up. So once they settled it, someone called the police. I don't know who it was. They come flying out of nowhere, and it was like 6 of them. They was 6 deep. Pulled us out. Get on the ground right now. Pulled the gun. Get on the ground right now. Da 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 da. I'm like, okay, do it. Don't want no trouble. So we got on the ground. Now my boy, he didn't get on the ground.
Oh.
He's like, no. He's like, because I didn't
do what they say.
He said I didn't do anything, and that's the feeling that a lot of people have, not just black, but people, when they feel like they didn't do nothing, I'm not going to comply. The only problem with that is, as an officer, if they're not compliant, it's supposed to be, we'll talk afterwards, but some people are like, nah, we ain't talking because I ain't done nothing. So you have to use wisdom, and you have to say, okay, yes, I didn't do nothing. And if it is, then file a complaint. But don't put yourself in a position where you're going to get shot. They took, thankfully, because where we were at, by the time they stopped us, because we had already started walking. So we're getting ready to walk across the street, and all these police officers come. We were on such a busy, it's called Oregon Expressway. It's so busy that way.
Yeah.
So you know where that's at.
Yep.
I'll probably say that's the only reason why he probably didn't get shot. We were somewhere else, he possibly would have gotten shot. But thank God he didn't. What they did was they just tackled him. We told them what happened. They told us, they said, look, we're sorry this happened. Someone called us and said 3 black men was jumping a white boy. And I was like, so y'all got here that fast? I was like,
yeah, because the police department's right down the street. I mean,
yes.
Yeah.
And so I told them, my thing to them was, if that was 3 boys jumping a black guy, would y'all would have gotten here so fast? And he couldn't give me an explanation. This is when I was in college. He couldn't give me an explanation.
They probably would not have called.
Probably not. But they got there in a hurry. But it was just more grace given to us and more of an understanding. Okay, there are certain things you can do, even if you say, "Look, man, this is unfairly, justly wrong." I would not. Well, if you choose to take that stand, then you have to. And I don't mean it like this in a negative way. You're going to have to be prepared
for the consequences.
Yes. And my whole thing with life is, if we were fighting fire with fire, I can get that. Then I'll take the stand violently. That there's ways that we can go about this where we not only live to see another day, but you're either going to get that officer training or you're going to get him out the force, because that's not what the police should represent. Now, that's not what they should represent. Now, will they represent? You're going to always have, I feel, not always, but you're going to have some people who are going to insert their views into what they believe. That's why I make it very clear, it is not us against them, meaning, well, law enforcement against the bad guys. No, because not all law enforcement is good guys. Not all people who have committed crimes are bad guys. They made some bad decisions and they made some bad mistakes. They need a second chance, just like some of these, like this officer in this case, 12 to 18 complaints. In my opinion, he shouldn't even be on the force.
Right. Or
he needs to be reassigned. He needs to be reassigned to do something else if it matters to him that much. And it depends on what those complaints are saying, if it's a consistent amount of abuse, and say, well, we did our investigation, we didn't find anything wrong. Okay, but when you, and I can't recall if it was 12 or 18, that's entirely too many complaints. I don't care if,
It was
you
18.
know, if, yeah, 18, that's way too many. What type of discipline was handed out? What type of training? And you can hand out all those things to cover yourself as a department. But if it's what's in the heart, that's why the Lord, you know, that's why David said, create in me a clean heart, renew a right spirit within me. That's why I said during this time, this ain't just about, you know, Black people and the police. This is all of us. This is the body of Christ too, because they need to let the Lord search their heart. They'll be probably surprised that while there may not be no prejudice in there's probably some racism in there. And of course, some people feel like, oh, I like Black people. I invite them to my house. Oh, I like white people. I get along with all white people. No, it has nothing to do with that. That still doesn't mean.
If you like all white people, can I marry your son?
Exactly. Exactly. And that right there brings a good point. And someone has said that recently, like, if you're gonna, it was a coach, he said, if you're gonna cheer and be all in support for them on the football field,
Texas.
And they're helping your team win, you're gonna feel the same way when it's time to promote somebody. You're gonna feel the same way if one of them wants to go out and date your daughter. So, like I said, in some aspects, for people, especially people who are not believers, I expect that. But believers, we're called to examine ourselves. So we're supposed to be doing an inventory check. And I believe you should do one every day, all day. You should be, okay, Lord, search my heart. And then when the Lord brings it to our attention, because that's what discipline is, it's the Lord bringing to your attention something that he wants to make right. The Lord doesn't want racism in anybody. You know, he wants us all to be loving and helping one another. So that's why I posted. I'd say, look, it's not that all lives don't matter. No one's not saying that. But some people don't even value Black people. They don't think that Black lives even matter. So some people think it's a movement. No, it's just us. And I say us because I am Black. It's just saying that Black people lives have a value. You can't just take a life away and say, okay, man, he ain't nothing anyway. This is just one less scum on the earth. That's not how you look at life. You're not the judge. So no one has that authority to say that, okay, well, this person, I mean, even with the officer, you know what my prayer is that he would see my Lord and Savior, our Lord and Savior.
Yes.
The Lord will heal his heart of whatever reasoning, whatever justification that he has in his heart that he has towards not just Black people, but life in general. And you have some people who minds construed towards women. It's not just a race, but it's also with gender. And so my prayer is that he will come to know the Lord so the Lord can heal him of all his hurts and his pain, because God made him for a purpose. Jesus was sent to die for us all. So when God says, I so love the world, I gave my son, that's all of us. And then I know some people don't want to hear that. Oh man, screw that. He needs to get the electric chair. Okay, he gets the electric chair, and then what? I'm more concerned about his salvation. I mean,
how much more powerful would it be if he did in fact get saved, scales fall off of his eyes, and then his testimony of repentance?
Yeah.
And then what he wants to do to make things right. Can you just imagine the revival?
Yeah.
I mean, I really feel like this is an opportunity for the church to say, okay, we need to re-examine ourselves. This isn't working. So far, the response by the church, the Black church, that's one thing. It's the white church, the white evangelical church. It's almost as if they're saying, well, that's his fault. He shouldn't have done it. I was like, what? How have you felt about the white evangelical response to all of this? Because what I see, it scares me.
Well, what I see is, because what I've heard some people say is, I'm just going to trust it to God, or I'll just pray on it. Okay, we've been praying it. We've been entrusting it to God. We need to take the kingdom of God, God's way of doing things, and we need to implement them. Now, especially for white evangelicals, they have a power, they have a voice. And there's nothing wrong with saying, look, I'm supporting you because of why? Because you're God's son, you're God's daughter. Yes, I'm white and you're Black, but we still belong to the kingdom of God. Right. Remember the story in Luke 15, I think it's Luke 15, where Jesus was given the parable of, okay, there's 100 sheep.
Right.
99 is here, and then one gets away. But Lord, you got 99. Yeah, but that's still part. I'm not going to leave just that one out because I got the 99. And in
Right.
this case,
and it's not that you don't love the 99. You're just as concerned for the 99 as you are for the one.
Exactly. And that's how our Lord is. And so what I do is when I'm like, okay, Lord, search their heart, give them revelation, because if they don't want to speak out, they're not going to speak out. And I'm not going to hold it against them. I'm just going to be like, Lord, if they are crying for revival and they don't see this as an opportunity, Lord, search my heart. That's what this is about.
Right.
The Lord will get vengeance and he'll get justice, but I need to search my heart. And that's why I said, even me, because, oh man, this happened to a black man. Yeah, man. No, dude. First thing I did is one of the things I did is I went to the Lord. Okay, Lord, search my heart. If there's any racism in there, and the Lord told me this like 2-3 years ago, he said, search your heart. And I was like, Lord, I ain't got no racism in my heart. And, I was like, Lord, I ain't got no racism. I don't hate nobody. And the Lord said it has nothing to do with hate. But he said, if someone mentions something about black people, like if they say it in a negative way, you get upset. And you get upset because
you're black.
Yeah, exactly. I was going to say, this is specific. It's a combination of, that's a disrespect to God to think that this race don't even exist or has any value. But that's the significance of God. He's able to make so many different cultures and show you like they have so many giftings, and I'm going to get them all to come together. He's the only one that can do something like that. So when I see what I see, I'm not mad at some of the white ministries. I just hope that they are seeing what the Lord is trying to get their attention. And that is, we have to all examine our heart.
I like what you said. I like what you said about they've been praying for revival. The revival that they're seeking is here. Like you said, it's here. They don't like the fact that they might be on the wrong end of it. Yeah. Does that make sense? It's hard for, I don't know about you, but I have a hard time admitting when I'm making a mistake. I mean, it's gotten easier over the years. It's like, in fact, I cannot count the number of times I messed up and my son called me on it. I mean, he just cold. I'm like, yes, you're right. You're right. My bad. I'm sorry. I shouldn't have done that. And immediately he's like, he's ready to pounce. He's like, and I just dismantled that because I made a mistake. The revival is here. The revival we've all been praying for. The revival we've all been hoping for. That, how we've always, when we were at CHOP, we all knew, we could feel it. Something's coming. It's going to be glorious. It's here. Tell me a little bit about the response by people at CHOP without naming names.
I think it's been beautiful.
Really?
I mean, oh yeah. I believe it has been genuine. I think it has been beautiful. In my opinion, it has been beautiful.
When you're telling me that it's been heartening, that is so good. That is chicken soup to my soul. If it's getting through to the past, yay. Glory to God. Glory to him. This is the revival we've been waiting for. If that's what's happening, yes.
Yeah.
Has the pastor responded from the pulpit?
Well, they because he's still, I guess, streamlining still.
Yeah, streaming.
So he's still been at the service. He's been very supportive, as well as Pastor Wendy and Jordan and Andrew. Andrew did a beautiful message this past week, and then Jordan followed up something on Instagram. Pastor Andrew.
Yeah.
Pastor Andrew and you could almost say, might as well say, eventually Pastor Jordan.
Yeah.
And it was very, God's love was very flowing through them, and you can hear, in their messages, sharing God's love and making sure that we don't forget, like, yo, man, yes, all lives matter, but if you're going to be a believer, then, when we have certain injustice, that's what we're here for in the kingdom of God. We're here to make sure justice and God's love is righteousness. It has some justice in it. So, and that's what they were parlaying, not, for us to handle this the way our Father wants this to handle, and it's not taking a well, we're in a movement, man. The only movement that's moving is Christ's love.
That's right.
That's it. That's it. And that's why I said I had a very interesting conversation with one of my Christian brothers from college. And he thought I was trying to say that I'm a black man. I said, you're disrespecting who God made me. He made me a Christian black man. Now, because of that, I'm very thankful to be in the position that I am, just as though if I was a white man or if I was an Asian man. However, it's God's principles that I'm enforcing. It's God's love that I'm pushing. It's God's justice, his righteousness, his loving kindness that I am pushing out of me during this time. You know what I'm saying? It's not just about me being black. No, I'm just very blessed to be a part of that. My skin color is black, but my spirit is all Christ. And it starts with my spirit. And that's what's coming out. And that's what I'm trying to convey. And that's what Pastor Jordan and Pastor Andrew, that's what, and in some answers, Pastor Wendy and Pastor Greg, that's the message that we're trying to get across.
My pastor asked me to speak about some of my run-ins as a woman of color. And I just feel like people, they're saying all these wonderful things, and I just keep saying the same thing over and over. Did you ask the Lord?
Mm-hmm.
Did you check in with Jesus? What did he say? Were you quiet and still long enough to hear his answer? When he wants to reveal his heart, it might not be your heart that's in sync, and it might hurt. It might be hard. Mm-hmm. And that's the hard part, is like, well, that can't possibly be Jesus. Yeah. Yes, it is. In fact, here's a quick example. So last night I had to take off because I wanted to go to a poke bar, and I already placed my order, so I got to go get it. And I couldn't find my keys. I always hang my keys next to the door, always. So I said, my keys, I command you to reveal yourself. And immediately I heard, they're in the car. I'm like, that's impossible. So I kept going. I'm looking around the house. I don't know. And then I heard it again. It's in the car. I'm like, there's no way I left it in the car. It was in the car. And, it's just recognizing that you heard it right the first time.
Yeah.
Had I simply acted the first time, would have been out the door a few minutes earlier. Yeah. I just feel like, no, God can't possibly be saying that. It's like, maybe he is. And I know that for me, he's still dealing with me on so many different fronts. I'm a work in progress until the day I die. I mean, let's be honest.
That's everybody. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's everybody. And what I love about that is God's grace. He didn't yell at you. He didn't get mad. He just said it's in the car. Yeah, but it's not, okay, all right, well, it's in the car. Well, I'm going to go do this, I'm going to do that, and eventually, and it reminds me of a story, and I always share this one, and I share it because it's so profound to me. It reminded me when I had bought these shoes, and the Lord reminded me, take those shoes with you. And I was like, yeah, I'll do it. He's like, get them right now because you need to take them with you so you can send them back. I was like, yeah, Lord, I'll do that later. I was getting my stuff ready because I had to catch the train. And I tried to leave 5-10 minutes early, and the Lord was like, take that with you. And I kind of brushed it off. So I get to the train. Now, I'm like 5 to maybe 10 minutes early than the train was. The train comes like 15 minutes early. So I had to go all the way back, get the shoes I was supposed to send out, and then catch the next train. The moral of the story was the Lord was trying to tell me, if you would have took those shoes with you now, you would have made the train, but instead the train went by, and then you had to go all the way back home and then come all the way back. I mean, he was still loving.
Congratulations.
Still graceful. And that's why I say, even as the Lord works on you, he's still going to be graceful. He's still going to be mindful. He's still going to be loving. I think as long as we just keep submitting ourselves to the Lord, it's a journey. And the Lord wants us to enjoy the journey, even when we make mistakes, because you're going to make one. And in that, sometimes we're going to get hurt sometimes. But the good thing is we have someone who can heal us. Think about the people who don't allow the Lord to heal them. It's like not going to the doctor. And you have someone say, oh, man, I got this condition. Well, did you go to the doctor? Nah, man, I don't believe in going to the doctor. So what are you going to do? I'm just gonna live with it. You
Suffer.
crazy?
Yeah, I like suffering, so just let me suffer.
Yeah.
Please bring it on. I'll just stay home and suffer.
Yeah. So through it all, I feel like the Lord is gonna, he's gonna continue always. I mean, it's just like as long as you show up to the doctor and you let the Lord operate, he gonna do his thing. That's what the whole put the fire in the furnace, and I looked up, I studied diamonds, and I was very intrigued how when you find diamonds, I mean, man, and gold, like you still got to put them through they got to be cleansed. Gold, you got to get all the impurities out, and so it has to go through the fire to get refined, and it just comes out even more valuable. Same thing with diamonds. Once you clean those bad boys up and straighten those things out, I mean, diamond is a beautiful thing to behold, and that's what we all are. And I believe as long as we continue to submit to the Lord, and he's not giving us a spirit of fear, but love, power, and a sound mind. Because before, okay, man, I work in law enforcement and I'm a black man. I can see where I could go either way. But I made sure in my prayers when I got into this field, okay, Lord, because I didn't really want to do this. The Lord opened this door for me I went to school for business. I went to school for finance. And so the Lord opened this door for me to get involved in law enforcement. But I wanted to make sure that while I'm here, I'm not a police officer, I'm not a probation officer. It's what I do. It's my assignment. It's my job assignment. It's the same thing as a Christian. Even as a black man, I carry myself as the Lord would. Or you're going to act like how a black man. I don't know how a black man acts. I know how Christ acts. Well, is this how officer acts? I don't know how officer acts. I know how Christ acts. Well, you're a man. You act like all men. I don't know how men act, but I know how Christ acts. You see what I'm saying? Right. So I try to take that mentality, and that's all grace, because there was a time I wasn't a Christian. So I was being who I thought a black man is supposed to be. But as I continue to mature as a man of God, and when that opportunity comes to mature as a husband and a father, I'm going to take the same attributes that the Lord has laid out in his word for me to be and to conduct myself to get the full result of what I've been destined to do.
Yeah. And I think that's a great place to end. I mean, thank you so much for taking the time to talk to me. This is so important. People need to hear what you have to say. We'll be talking some more if you don't mind at some point. Yeah, because this is an important conversation.
You let me know what. Yeah, you just let me know what works for you.
All right. Well, thank you so much, and thank you to everyone who is listening. You can find me at Revivalist News on Twitter, hashtag the RNN for Revivalist News Network. And this will also be available on YouTube. So watch and comment. Please comment. I want to hear how you're receiving this, what you're thinking about all this. Leave your comments right there. So have a blessed day, y'all. Peace out.